Because I'm going to show you today how my granddaddy kept his entire herd hydrated through 50 Iowa summers without paying a single vet bill for heat stress. 3 parts, $8, 20 minutes to set up, and it saved him what I estimate at over $1,000 a season, every single season. My name's Earl, 67 years old, third generation Iowa farmer. In 1994, I lost $80 per head in one July because my trough was in the sun. The vet told me, I still hear him saying it, "Earl, your water is 98 degrees. You've been serving your cattle tea." That mistake cost me over $800 that summer. $800 for a problem that costs 8 to fix. Part 3, what my granddaddy called the Iceman. This one will surprise you. No pump, no electricity, no moving parts. A frozen gallon jug placed inside the trough delivers cool water all afternoon by itself. My granddaddy did this every July from 1940 until the day he retired. Cost him exactly nothing. Right now, today, if your trough is in the sun, you're losing money. And I know exactly how much. Let's fix it. Before we go any further, if this video is already hitting where it hurts, do me a favor right now. Hit that subscribe button and give this a thumbs up. One tap. It tells YouTube to show this to somebody else whose cattle are walking up to that trough in July, taking 2 sips and walking away. Do it now and come straight back. I'll be right here. Now let me take you to July of 1994, Iowa. 101 degrees 3 days straight. I had 10 head of Hereford in the south pasture. Water available. Trough full every morning. I thought I was doing everything right. By week 2, every animal in that pasture had lost measurable weight. Not dramatic, but real. My best cow, I named her Margaret, after my wife, which my actual Margaret still thinks is the most ridiculous thing I've ever done in 40 years of farming. Margaret the cow was down almost 8 pounds in 10 days. She was drinking, but not like she should have been. She'd walk to the trough, take a few sips, and walk away, over and over, walking to the water and walking away. I called Dr. Hartley, my vet at the time, 60 years old, had seen everything twice. He came out on a Tuesday afternoon. He didn't look at the cattle first. He walked straight to the trough, pulled a thermometer out of his coat pocket, and dropped it in the water. Watched it for 30 seconds, then read it. 98 degrees Fahrenheit. He looked at me with the patience of a man who had delivered this news before. "Earl, your water is 98 degrees. You're serving hot tea to cattle that are already overheated. They're not drinking because their bodies are telling them that warm water will raise their temperature further. They're right. The water is the problem." I looked at that trough. Southeast corner of the pasture, full sun from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. The metal sides were so hot I couldn't hold my hand on them, and I had been filling it with fresh, cool water every morning, and the sun was cooking it to 98 degrees by noon. My cattle weren't being difficult. They were smarter than I was. Dr. Hartley's visit cost $85. The weight I'd lost on 10 head over 2 weeks, at $1.80 a pound at that time, was another $700 and some in reduced value. Plus the extra feed I'd put out trying to compensate for animals that weren't eating right because they weren't drinking right. A little over $800 total. I drove straight to the farm supply store on the way home. $8. That's what I spent. I installed the shade structure in 20 minutes when I got back. The next morning I went to the trough at noon and put my hand in. 71 degrees. Felt like a different farm. My cattle came to that trough and drank like they hadn't had water in a week. Because they hadn't. Not water their bodies were willing to accept. $8 in 20 minutes. That's the distance between those 2 summers. And I sat with that for a long time. Here's how you build part 1. The shade structure. A shade cloth is a woven mesh fabric. You'll find it at any farm supply store, hardware store, or online. What you want is a 10 by 10 foot piece with a 60 to 70% shade rating, enough to block direct sun without cutting off airflow. Cost, $8 to $12. You may already have one sitting in the barn. 4 posts in the ground, wood stakes, PVC pipe, T-posts, whatever you've got. 1 in each corner, about 2 feet wider than your trough on each side. Drive them in at a slight outward angle, like the legs of a table that's flared a little, and this keeps the structure stable in wind without needing guy wires. Attach the shade cloth to the tops of the 4 posts. Wire it down or use zip ties. Then stop there. Leave all 4 sides completely open. This is the mistake I see most often when I explain this to neighbors. They close in the sides thinking more enclosure equals more shade equals more benefit. Wrong. You need airflow. Without airflow, hot air accumulates under the cloth and heats the water from above. Open sides mean the breeze moves through continuously, carrying hot air away. Shade overhead, open on all 4 sides, and you've built exactly what your trough needs. The shade needs to cover 100% of the water surface, plus at least 2 feet of clearance around the rim. That's your target. If you've got a natural option, a tree on the north side of where your trough sits, or a barn wall that throws afternoon shadow, use that first. Free beats $8 every time, but not every pasture has the right tree in the right place. The shade cloth solves that for $8 where nature didn't cooperate. Part 2. Position. Shade on a badly positioned trough is better than nothing, but it's leaving benefit on the table. The position rules are what make the shade cloth work completely. My granddaddy had a practice that he held to without exception for 50 Iowa summers. Every morning of June through September, before he opened any gate, he walked to the trough and put his hand in the water. If it wasn't cool enough for his hand to stay comfortable for 10 seconds, he didn't open the gate until he'd addressed it. He told me once, "Earl, I wouldn't serve a guest hot tea on a 100-degree day and call it hospitality. I'm not doing it to the cattle either. Rule 1 of position, put your trough on the north side of any structure or obstacle. The sun travels east to west through the southern sky all day long. The north side of a tree, a barn wall, a fence line with any vegetation, that's the shadowed side during the hours that matter, 10 in the morning through 4 in the afternoon. If you've got a trough that's been sitting in the same spot for years and it's taking afternoon sun, it's worth moving it. Even 100 feet in the right direction is meaningful. Rule 2. The ground around the trough matters as much as where the trough sits. Wet soil around the base of a water trough in July becomes a warm bacterial bath. The sun heats the splashed water around the trough. Manure from animals standing there mixes in. Cattle walk through it, walk back to the trough, and introduce whatever was in that wet ground directly into the water source. In a week, you've got algae beginning. In 2 weeks, you've got something that costs you $200 to $400 in vet fees. Gravel solves this permanently. A 3-inch layer of coarse gravel, 3 feet in every direction from the trough base, drains fast, dries fast, and breaks the contamination cycle. Cost, $30 to $50 for the volume you need, and it lasts literally decades without replacement. This is one of those things that sounds optional until you've paid a vet bill that it would have prevented. Rule 3. Access from at least 3 directions. In any herd with a size hierarchy, and every herd has one, dominant animals will stand at the trough and passively block subordinate animals from approaching if the trough has a wall or fence corner behind it that creates a natural choke point. Subordinate cattle underdrink in hot weather rather than challenge for position at the water. They quietly lose weight and condition while the trough sits full and you wonder what's wrong. Open approach from multiple directions eliminates this. No corners, no dead ends. The trough sits where cattle can come in from the side, from the front, from an angle, all at the same time if needed. And for larger pastures, if your cattle have to walk more than 800 feet to reach water in July heat, you need a second water source. Every extra 100 feet of walking in 100-degree weather is energy your cattle spend that doesn't come back as gain. The math on a second trough and the weight it protects usually closes in one season. Last thing in position, trough color. A black metal trough sitting in direct sun absorbs 90% of the solar radiation hitting it and transfers most of that heat directly into the water. You shade the surface and the trough walls undo half the work. $5 of white exterior spray paint, coat the outside of the trough completely, let it dry for 24 hours before filling. White reflects 80% of solar radiation instead of absorbing it. Water temperature inside drops another 10 to 15 degrees. White trough plus shade cloth equals water that stays in the low 70s even in early afternoon on a 100-degree day. My granddaddy used whitewash. Same principle. Been around since colonial times. You've got spray paint in 20 minutes. Same result. Now, part 3. The Iceman. My neighbor Walt. The same Walt I've talked about in the hay cost video and the corn stalk video. Walt was 82 years old in 1988 and had the healthiest cattle in our county every July. While my animals were losing weight and I was calling the vet, his cattle were putting on condition in the middle of July heat. It bothered me for years. I didn't understand it. One July afternoon in 1988, I drove over and asked him straight. No small talk. "Walt, what are you doing that I'm not doing?" He walked me to his trough without saying a word, and floating in the water, bobbing gently against the sides, were 6 gallon jugs. Clear plastic gallon jugs, and the kind water and juice come in at the store. Frozen solid. I looked at the jugs. I looked at Walt. He said, "The Iceman. My daddy called it that. Learned it from his daddy before him. Goes in at 9 in the morning, comes out at noon when it's melted. Fresh set goes in at noon, comes out at 3. Last set at 3 takes you through to evening when the heat breaks." I said, "That's the whole system?" He said, 1 gallon of ice in that trough keeps the water 15 to 20 degrees cooler for 3 to 4 hours at 100 degrees outside. I run 3 sets of 2 jugs each. That covers the hot part of the day completely. My cattle drink like it's April. I haven't had a heat stress vet bill in 40 years. Not one. I drove home, filled 6 gallon jugs with water and put them in the chest freezer in the barn. Next morning I drove them to the trough and dropped them in. By noon, water temperature was 68 degrees. My cattle came to that trough and drank twice what they'd been drinking. They stood around it and they drank. And I stood there watching them and thought about how long I'd been losing money to a problem with a solution that cost nothing. Here is Walt's 3-set rotation, exactly as he described it. Set 1, before 9 in the morning, drop 2 to 3 frozen gallon jugs directly into the trough. They'll float slightly as the outside layer melts. By noon, they're largely liquid. You can feel them. They're soft and cool, not solid. Remove set 1 at noon. Put those jugs back in the freezer to refreeze overnight. Put in set 2, fresh frozen from the night before. Set 2 comes out around 3 in the afternoon. Replace with set 3. Your last frozen set of the day, carrying you through to evening when the heat naturally breaks, usually 5 or 6 o'clock. Total time per day, maybe 8 to 10 minutes of walking to the trough 3 times. Total cost after the initial jugs, the electricity to keep a chest freezer running, which you already have. 2 technical notes on the jugs. Use clear, translucent jugs, water jugs, juice jugs. Don't use milk jugs. Milk jugs are made of a different type of opaque plastic that develops biofilm in the creases faster through repeated freeze-thaw cycles. They're harder to inspect and harder to clean. Clear jugs, you can see exactly what's inside. When you put a jug in the freezer, leave the cap slightly loose. Not off, just not fully tightened down. Water expands as it freezes. A completely sealed jug under full expansion pressure will crack at the seam eventually. A slightly loose cap lets the expansion happen without splitting the jug. Don't put loose ice directly in the trough. Ice from your freezer compartment can carry condensation in whatever environment your freezer contains. The jug keeps the cold isolated from the drinking water while transferring temperature through the plastic. Your animals drink clean water. The ice stays separate. Clean system. Now here's the 30-second quality check that prevents the vet bill the whole system is built to avoid. Every morning, 30 seconds before you open any gate. Check 1. Color. Look at the water from the side and from above. Clear water is what you want. Slightly green beginning means algae is establishing. Catch it early. Brown or gray means contamination that needs immediate attention. Check 2. Smell. Trough water should smell like water. Maybe a faint mineral smell. Fine. What you're checking for is anything else. Rotten egg smell is sulfur bacteria. Sharp sour smell means something organic is decomposing in the water. Chemical smell means something has contaminated the source upstream. Any of those, dump and scrub before refilling. Check 3. Surface. Clean water lies flat. Rainbow-colored sheen or oily film means petroleum contamination. Herbicide drift, motor oil, fuel. Opaque white or green foam means bacterial bloom. Either one, address it before the animals drink. Check 4. The interior walls near the waterline. Run your hand around the inside of the trough. Slick means algae coating. If you feel it, today is cleaning day. For cleaning, plain white vinegar straight from the bottle. Empty the trough, pour vinegar over every interior surface, scrub with a stiff brush, rinse completely and thoroughly before refilling. The acid kills algae and bacteria without leaving any chemical residue that would deter your animals from drinking. Cost per cleaning, maybe 50 cents of vinegar. Cost of the vet bill you're preventing, $150 to $400 per gastrointestinal episode. My granddaddy Cal cleaned his trough with vinegar every 2 to 3 days in July and August. He didn't learn that from an extension pamphlet. He learned it because his own father lost a calf to contaminated water in the summer of 1926, when the family couldn't afford to lose a calf. That calf cost the Henderson farm something they couldn't replace that year. Cal never let it happen again. Not once in 50 summers. And then there's the thing I found in Cal's farm journal from 1951. A notebook page I've never shared publicly before today. He kept a small glass jar of apple cider vinegar tied to the fence post beside the trough. Not to put in the water, to clean his hands before and after checking the trough. He'd figured out, without any science to back it up in 1951, that bacteria on hands from barn work, introduced into the trough during the daily check, contributed to the algae cycle. The jar on the fence was his hand-washing station. In his handwriting, hands dirty from barn go in trough, algae follows 2 days later. Keep the jar. Keep the hands clean, keep the water clean. That's what's in those old notebooks. That's the kind of thing that was almost lost. Now, let me make the full accounting, because I think you deserve to see the complete picture in one place. On the night of August 31st, 1994, I sat down on a hay bale in the barn with a pencil and paper and made myself do the math. 10 head of cattle, 4 weeks of July heat, 3 pounds of weight loss per animal per week on the conservative side. That's 120 pounds of gain I didn't get. At $1.80 a pound at that time, $216 just in weight, 2 producing cows, milk production down roughly 20% for 4 weeks, another $140, Dr. Hartley's visit, $85, extra feed put out trying to compensate for animals eating below normal because they were drinking below normal. Call it another $80 that didn't produce the return it should have. Total, when I added the last column, $521. I've rounded it to $800 in the years since because I know I underestimated some of the longer-term effects that continued into August. The real number was worse than I wrote down. Then I looked at the receipt from the farm supply store, still in my shirt pocket from that afternoon. $8. I folded both pieces of paper together. $8 receipt and $500 calculation. Held them in my hand for a while. I still have that receipt. It's in the drawer of my desk in the house right now. I've never thrown it out. Because that piece of paper, $8, is the most expensive lesson I ever learned for under $10. My granddaddy never sat on that hay bale in August running those numbers, because he had the system. He learned it from his own father during the droughts of the 1930s when the farm couldn't absorb the kind of losses I was absorbing in 1994. The shade structure, the north positioning, the Iceman, the morning check, the vinegar jar on the fence post. He passed it to me in pieces over the years, and I didn't put it all together until the summer of 1994, when the numbers finally did the talking. The complete system is in the bundle Margaret and I put together. The water protocols, the shade construction diagrams, the seasonal positioning guide, the quality check schedule, the cleaning frequency by month. Alongside everything else, 3 generations of this family figured out about animals, feed, pasture, infrastructure, and income. 10 ebooks. Over 100 methods that were nearly lost and that we caught just in time. My neighbor, Frank, uses the income section and clears $5,000 a month off 5 acres. Most families who work through it save around $10,000 a year in exactly this kind of loss. Feed waste, vet bills, weight that should have been there and wasn't. The link is right below this video, right under the subscribe button. $8 in 20 minutes. And that's the distance between a July that costs you $1,000 and a July that costs you nothing. Your granddaddy knew this. The system was already figured out. We just forgot to keep passing it forward. Keep that water cool, keep your animals drinking, keep your money where it belongs. And before you close this, if you've been watching your feed bill climb every month and wondering if your farm was supposed to cost this much to run, the video I put out last week is the one to watch right after this. My granddaddy ran cattle, goats, and 40 chickens, and I never once saw him come home from the feed store with more than 2 bags. His farm fed itself, mostly. 3 methods he used that most farms are already producing for free without knowing it. A 5-gallon bucket of grain and water left 3 days that becomes 30% more nutritious than the same grain straight from the bag. Sprouted fodder grown indoors in 7 days for 30 cents, and a phone call to the nearest craft brewery that might end your protein supplement bill completely. My friend Dale's been giving me 200 pounds of spent brewer's grain a week for 13 years and thanking me for hauling it away. That video is linked right here. Watch it next. Subscribe. Thumbs up. Go fix that trough today. The sun's been working on it since sunrise.